Thanks for being here. I know we're about to start hour 3 of this hearing, and I want to associate myself with the comments, the respectful comments on both sides of the aisle for those who made it, and apologize for those who aren't respectful as you come up here for these hearings. I think that there's a lot of the issues that are affecting the average American, particularly around prices and budgets and supply chains, are now we're seeing really affect the U.S. military. So my questions are going to focus mostly on that. And Mr. McCord, I'm going to give you a chance to get in the game here. First and foremost, actually, I'll start with Mr. Secretary Austin on supply chains, right? I represent a district that has 2 GM factories. One has been off and on dormant for the past year because we can't get a 14-cent microchip. Myself and Congressman Gallagher led a task force on DOD and sort of highlighting the issues on supply chains that the department had. You know, you picked up the rug on some of our supply chains at the Defense Department. There was a lot of creepy crawlies under there, a lot of dependencies on places like China that even for our U.S. military we still had. Can you tell us, we had some prescriptions in the last NDAA, but help give us some comfort that, like our private sector companies, DOD is actually kind of getting in the game and looking at this as a vulnerability?
We are in the game. As you know, it's been and is an area of emphasis for the president and for the government writ large. So DOD is doing its part. This is especially important to us as we look at components of our critical weapon systems that use microchips, that use critical materials, strategic materials. We want to make sure that we are not vulnerable to.
Right.
To
Right, because I think the thing that while a GM plant can shut down, the U.S. military doesn't have that privilege of being able to shut down and just taking an economic hit. It's the protection of the country. Mr. McCord, on the budget, we've had a lot of discussion here about whether the proposed president's budget keeps up with the rate of inflation. And you said that you crafted the budget with a 4% inflation rate. We know that that has largely gone up. I know that, frankly, on a bipartisan basis, people are interested in at least making sure that the department is keeping pace with with inflation. Would you be willing to consider coming back to us and keying the budget to the rate of inflation? Very short, yes or no.
Congressman, yes. I think we're going to need to work with the committees, I believe, going forward to look at what's actually happening on the ground. And we had, as the Secretary said, we had to snap the chalk line at some point. To finish the budget, you have to make some assumptions and then move on. And
Sure.
we normally revisit our own situation internally, which generates reprogrammings that we send to you. We'll do that as soon as possible this year as well.
And I think there's nowhere that's more clear where inflation is really kind of a punch in the gut, at least in a district like mine where people drive 40 miles one way to work. It's the price of gas. And as I see it, the Department of Defense is one of the biggest consumers, maybe in the world, of gasoline. And I think you noted it was about $12 billion we spend a year on gas. What, if anything, has the Department of Defense done advocating with the White House to do more to try and affect the price of gas?
Congressman, as you say, we consume a lot of gas, but we are small compared to the market. We cannot drive the market by ourselves as 1% of the market. We're about 15% of the jet fuel market, so we are a significant player there. But we are ultimately at the mercy of the markets the way most other entities are. And our budget was done before Putin's invasion of Ukraine spiked oil prices. Of course, that spike may come down slowly, may come down quickly. That's one of the many variables out there. But we are going to have to adjust for that going forward. Okay,
I would just say, as one of the biggest consumers, at least in the United States, of gas, that your voice in the conversation on doing more to try and lower the prices of gas would be helpful. Lastly, Mr. McCord, we passed on a bipartisan basis an amendment in the last year's NDAA that helps to try and examine the amount of pork, and I mean congressional pork, that is in the Department of Defense budget. The things that you all have tried to kill, the legacy weapon systems that you don't want anymore, the facilities you've tried to shut down. That amendment required a report. What is your assessment? I mean, I know the report isn't done yet, of what percentage of the department budget are things that the U.S. Congress has required you to provide?
Congressman, again, the report's not done, but I think in most years it averages in the 3 to 5% range. So it's not overwhelming, but it's significant.
And the rest of this we'll have to take for the record. The gentlelady's time has expired. Mr. Waltz is recognized